These players were stuck, not progressing, and quickly running out of motivation. Each trained for hours and still couldn't improve their aim. But the reasons completely different for each one. These people weren't just doing your average mistakes, they were all doing something weird, different, and unpredictable. So I coached them, and this is how we fixed their mistakes. I've worked with well over 1,000 players, and the most common thing I see is this: people blame the wrong problem. So in this video, I'll break down 2 different clients, you'll see their struggles, how I approached their training, and what actually got them results. Client 1 is missing shots he's capable of hitting, moving fast in ways he can't yet handle. This happens due to an over-reliance on the initial flick that leads to you being at the whim of your raw reflexes, and since his basics weren't there yet, it created random looking aim. By over-relying on our raw reactions, we also give up our ability to micro, since wide snaps remove our ability to decelerate or confirm. These issues indirectly correlate to him strafing as a form of microing, highlighting a block in his micro movements. The key here is to realize the blocked micros is the symptom, not the root cause, which is the poor decelerations. These reactionary shots, even if hit, display poor mouse control due to the inability to correlate your tracking with your clicking, showcasing randomness rather than skill. You're essentially throwing your mouse anywhere near the target and hoping for the best. If we take a look at his Kovaaks habits, a few things become more clear. In speed clicking, he achieves speed by not decelerating, which results in stiffness. He's aiming like he's punching someone, not like he's steering his mouse. This over excessive snappiness causes randomness due to mouse movements being disconnected from your paracentral vision and overly relying on your peripherals, which is inconsistent if you're trying to hit moving smaller targets in game. If we look at this wide wall static, we can see a similar story except even more clear. He's snapping his mouse into a zone around the target. This leads to an abrupt halt, causing the micros to be delayed. This means we give our target a chance to move before you have a chance to micro. Since we programmed them to be delayed in Kovaaks, they will be delayed in-game as well. The issue wasn't speed, it was speed management. Here's a quick rundown of what speed management is. You constantly push speed in the wrong way through hard accelerations that cause abrupt halts. This creates wasted movements. These wasted movements then prolong recoverability, which can be thought of as micros or poor movement, causing a longer TTK than necessary. Here's exactly what I did to fix it. To work on his raw reactions, I gave him precise pokeball in combination with low TTK switching. The pokeball allows for his reactionary lines to be cleaner, and the speed switching creates better recoverability after making a mistake. I gave him static that punishes missing, wide wall scenarios to work on decelerations, dynamic micro scenarios to unfreeze his aim as it helps your initial flick, and ability to do smaller micros after a poor initial flick. Movement tracking to develop his ability to follow targets while in motion, and precision tracking to help movement reading while removing over-reliance on his flicking, therefore evening out his skill set so no one aim field is saturated. I gave him 3 different techniques. Firstly, he must look at the target before moving his mouse, not once he completed his initial flick as he did before. I also told him to focus on his decelerations and underflick rather than overflick. In combination, we practiced visually confirming before clicking and static to build the habit of only clicking when we're on target, cutting off all the randomness. Here's some of the results he sent me just a few days later. Once his flicking technique improved and he understood speed management, his consistency shot up. He started hitting more by cutting out the randomness. Client 2 had an opposite problem, yet similar issues. His tracking was hyperactive, always correcting and never smooth. To most people, it looked like a sensitivity issue, but it isn't. It was internal panic. The issues in his tracking came as a result of him being hyper aware of smaller changes in directions. He's treating a smoothness scenario like a reactive one, constantly being alert to any changes in direction and reacting with hard and firm snaps to get on target, instead of being smooth, minimalizing wasted motions, and staying composed since the target is only making slight directional changes. The assisting issue was that his basics weren't there. If you don't have skill, your mind compensates by guessing and anticipating what will happen next rather than following the flow. To solve this, I gave him slow precision because he showcased shaking in slow-paced tracking like AA4 or DDTV. Linear tracking to reinforce the fundamentals of the strafe, because if you can't hit a slow strafing target without shaking, there's no chance you'll hit a faster one doing the same. Regen scenarios are useful in this case since it challenges his ability to transition from flicking fast to smoothly tracking, while at the same time punishing him for missing. I also gave him more micro track scenarios that work on his ability to do very slight adjustments, forcing him to constantly recenter and remain smooth. In-game, this caused subtle microshakes to appear just before or during spraying, leading to him struggling despite the target moving in a slow, predictable manner, making him feel like he's missing shots he knows he should have hit. So I stripped down his need to play overly difficult scenarios and gave him stricter penalties for overly correcting. He essentially wanted to jump steps instead of working the absolute basics. Getting good at that and moving on, he jumped to very difficult scenarios and faster moving targets before his mind was able to handle it, leading to bad habits to form in-game. I suggested he track more with his arm than his wrist, since shaky aimers frequently have an overt focus on wrist-only movements, often leading to death gripping your mouse. If you're shaking at predictable patterns, which also move at a slow pace, chances are you don't need something more advanced but the basics. I told him to always be actively aiming, meaning he should aim for the center of the bot rather than autopiloting. This creates the constant need for conscious focus, eliminating the guessing work your brain does when you're on autopilot mode. By week 2, he started flowing. Tracking wasn't jerky anymore, and unsurprisingly, his in-game started looking a lot smoother. So what improved their aim? It wasn't grinding harder, it wasn't copying pro routines, it was fixing the habits. Each one of these players needed something different, but they all had one thing in common: they were training the wrong problem. Aim isn't just mechanical, it's psychological. That's why I coach the way I do, not just to make people shoot straight, but to train with the intent of progressing their habits. If you want help breaking your own plateau, check the link in the description and I'll figure out exactly what's holding you back.